Hey everybody, and a warm welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, we look at the bourbons and whiskies to look out for the month of November. Run that video. Alright then folks, let's get into this video, shall we? But before we begin, thank you for all the subscribers out there and to all you new folks. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider being one as we continue to make this channel grow. It's still quite a young channel, so any support I can get from you folks out there, I really do appreciate it. With that being said, let's take a look for some of the whiskies and bourbons, rye and single malts that will be coming out in the month of November. So first up is going to be Chattanooga Bottled in Bond. It is going to be, I wasn't able to find many bottles or many labels of this new design, but to my understanding, it's going to be the same bottle as this, as like all the Chattanoogas, and then they're going to have the strip of the label there. I was able to find the front bottle here, which we'll have a look. It is, of course, bottled in Bond, so it is 50% ABV. It is part of their vintage season, and it was distilled in fall 2018, so obviously it will be ready for this year. This goes on, then talks a little bit about the fall 2018 vintage, features two mash bills familiar to the Bottled in Bond series, SB091 and B005, which are joined by two mash bills new to the series, B002 and R18098. I don't know why some of these distilleries and some of these companies come up with the most crazy names for strains, or mash bills, but there we go. These add a variety of specialty malts, including cherrywood smoked malt, naked oat malt, and dehusked chocolate malt. Together, these two new mash bills make up 50% of the recipe and contribute rich notes of smooth dark chocolate, cherry pie, and caramel cone to the final whiskey. Expect notes of toasted oatmeal cookie, sweet crepe, and dried herbs with a light smoky finish. Coming in at $52.99, which is pretty good value for money if you think of kind of like craft whiskey. It is 4 years old, it is bottled in Bond. It's going to kind of look a little bit similar to this. They always use the real corks as well, which is quite cool. And what I really like about Chattanooga, they go into a lot of detail on the back labels here, which will probably be the same for the bottled in Bond as well. So if you're someone who wants to support maybe more of a craft whiskey distillery or something off the beaten path, then I think the Chattanooga will be a good option for you there. So that was Chattanooga Bottled in Bond. So next up we have Bardstown Fusion batch 8 and 9. Again, I wasn't able to find much of the labels, but they're going to be same as the other batches of the Fusion as well. I'll put the kind of a picture of what they look like on the screen here, and I'll read a little bit of information I was able to find. It says, with Fusion, not only have we enjoyed the evolution of the series as more of our stock comes to age, but also the interesting play between old whiskies and younger ones, which can bring a complexity and flavor profile that you don't see anywhere else, said Dan Calloway, Vice President of Product Development and Hospitality, who leads blending for Bardstown Bourbon Company. And that is true as well, because it is a blend of 4 and 12 years, so that's right in line with that. He goes on to say, as we move toward new and exciting releases with the distillate we've created, Fusion will remain a signpost in the history of Bardstown Bourbon Company, and encompassing our approach to the art of science and modern blending. Fusion 9, the series final release, so Fusion 9 will be the last Fusion release for the foreseeable future, so it might be worth picking that one up, will be available later this fall. Waves of butterscotch and ripe cherry, mint, coconut and black pepper lead this nuanced blend. A luscious mouthfeel of red fruit and maple gives way to the indulgent finish of caramel sweetness and a lasting rye spice. Throughout the series, we've showcased the best of our estate distilled bourbon with carefully curated aged whiskey. We conclude the series with our favorite creation to date. So they're going on to say that batch 9 is probably the best one to date of the Fusion series. So if you're someone who hasn't got involved in the Fusion series yet, sounds like batch 9, the last one, will be a good one to get involved in. So that was Fusion from Bardstown, batch 8 and 9. So then moving on to Jim Beam, just not so far away from Bardstown there, and that is Jim Beam's red wine cask finish by Basil Hayden's. So this is the Basil Hayden red wine cask finish, coming in at 80 proof for 40% alcohol by volume, much like all of the other Basil Haydens. MSRP is $60. Bit too much for what I would like to pay. I don't really buy the Basil Haydens anymore, but that seems a little bit steep. So we'll go ahead and put the label on the screen for that. As you can see, kind of like a woody, kind of winey, red wine kind of theme to this year. Basil Haydens cask finish red wine there. Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, partially finished in red wine casks. So as you'll hear when I read this kind of information about Basil Hayden's here, about this release, you'll understand what they mean by partially finished. So to craft this special expression, 8th generation master distiller Freddie No blends the signature Basil Hayden Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey with bourbon partially aged in California red wine casks. The vanilla and charred oak notes of Basil Hayden's into wine with flavors of dried fruit, sweet nectar, and are imparted by the red wine cask for a layered, complex yet approachable result. The perfect foray into the category of wine lovers and an intriguing expression for bourbon enthusiasts. No being the head distiller, crafted this approachable whiskey with the appetite, sip and occasion in mind. This new limited edition is representative of Basil Hayden's founders Booker No mission for the whiskey to open up people's minds of what bourbon can be. Basil Hayden's continues to reach newer audiences and expands the boundaries of how and when bourbon can be consumed with the unexpected addition of a red wine casks. So it kind of sounds like from what I was reading is that they take some of the bourbon, age that in red wine casks, and then blend it just with more of the Basil Hayden's regular stuff. So they don't age it all, which is interesting because normally you get all the whiskey and just age it on like a special barrel for a certain amount of time. So they've kind of done it a little bit differently there. And then again, going back to the labels, we have kind of like the woody labels for the front and the back here, and then the typical standard Basil Hayden small batch print there. So that was the Basil Hayden's red wine cask finish. And then coming up next is Woodford Reserve's Masters Collection, the historic entry-proof bourbon. This is going to be the batch number 18. So I think going back quite a while, actually, I think maybe early 2000s and like 2010s. So maybe like 2010, they started this series, the Reserve Masters Collection. They're on 18 right now. 17 was the malted stout. 16 was the very fine or rare bourbon, and then 15 was the chocolate melted rye. So personally, the ones I've tried the chocolate rye and I've tried the malted stout. I wasn't much of a big fan of either of those. I know this kind of series gets a lot of mixed reviews just because the price ranges between like $130 and $150. So you're paying a lot of money for a whiskey that's kind of a bit experimental to a degree. So this batch is coming in at 90.4 proof. So since 2013, the number 8 edition, they've all been 19.4. So the next one is also going to be that. It's not going to be finished in anything at all. It's just going to kind of be like the very fine bourbon. I guess they're just going to like kind of cherry pick some barrels and then they've released them under the Woodford Reserve Masters Collection. Again, like I said, going to be coming in around about $130 to $150. Take a look at the label on the screen. This is the only information I was able to get. Kind of, it's going to be like more of their seafood label that they put on, kind of like the batch proof as well. So pretty standard stuff here. Nothing too much to write home about. That was Woodford Reserve's Master Collection historic entry-proof bourbon. Next up, we have Jack Daniel's with their twice-barreled single malt. So Jack Daniel's are foraging into the American single malt market with an expression very similar sounding, more to Scotch. So this is going to be 100 proof. I think the recommended retail price on this is going to be $69.99, $70. So what I was able to read about this is that Jack Daniel's twice barrel special release American single malt, which is finished in Oloroso sherry, finished in Oloroso barrels, which a lot of Scotches finish their whiskey in, which is made from 100% malted barley, a description which bears more than a passing resemblance to Scotch whiskies. There you go, bingo, right on time. Jack Daniel's has previously released only a few barrel finished whiskies, including some of the Tennessee Tasting collection and the number 27 Gold, which was finished in maple wood barrels. This will be the first single malt by Jack Daniel's. So I will say I've had a few of those Tennessee Tasters, not a big fan thus far. I haven't been able to find, I've tried 4 I think to date, and I haven't really liked any of them. But this is going to be the first forage into American single malt, and I think that for someone, personally, I do not like American single malt. I feel like it has like a really corny, grainy, yeasty note to it. But I'm really hopeful that Jack Daniel's can pull it off, because if there's anybody who can do it, it's got to be Jack Daniel's. So if we took a look at the screen here, we can see the Jack Daniel's label, front and back, and the underneath label. Also says twice barreled. And then on the right label, you can see that this is going to be a limited bottle number. So I wonder if it's going to be kind of like a Coy Hill release, or kind of like their Rive release, so a little bit smaller of a release. Not necessarily only a release at the distillery, but it's just a smaller batch release in general. This obviously goes on to say at the back here, this special release series highlights the Jack Daniel's Distillery's innovation, crafted from 100% malted barley, matured in new American charred oak barrels, and then finest Oloroso sherry casks. We extend this one-of-a-kind craftsmanship to you. Coming in at 54%, it says here. I thought it was going to be 100 proof, so it would be 50% alcohol, but no, this label says 50% alcohol or 108 proof. I think when I was looking at this label, there was a note there that could be subject to change. So I think it's fair to say it's going to be between 100 and 108 proof, somewhere in that line. So that was the Jack Daniel's twice barreled. So coming up next, and this edition, this whiskey really caught me off guard because I had no idea that this was coming. And that is the Old Forester King Ranch. So this is a Texas exclusive, and this is a collaboration bourbon with the birthplace of American ranching in Texas. The Old Forester bourbon is filtered through mesquite charcoal for a subtly smoke and sweet finish. It says unconfirmed, but this might be a Texas only exclusive. To my understanding, it is going to be a Texas only release. I might be wrong there, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But thus far, all the information coming out is that it's solely going to be a Texas release. So if we take a look at the labels here, we see the first label, Old Forester, and then the King Ranch kind of has that W, kind of the ranch emblem. A proprietary batch using heavily charcoaled barrels filtered through King Ranch mesquite charcoal. And then if we look at the back here, Old Forester King Ranch Edition celebrates the union of two iconic American brands. With over 300 years of combined history, each is woven into the nation's fabric. Old Forester, the first bottled bourbon, and King Ranch, the birthplace of American ranching. This expression is a homage to the values that bring them together, including hard work, ingenuity, and a lasting legacy. So with a mesquite kind of charcoal finish, I wonder if we're going to be getting more of like a kind of like a Tennessee tasting whiskey, or maybe even a Texas tasting whiskey. So you get a lot of it like a sweet and spice note with Texas whiskey, or at least I do. And then with Tennessee whiskey, it's a bit more on the sweeter kind of maple side. So I really would like to try a bottle of this. If I'm lucky enough, I might be able to get a bottle. But if it's coming just released in Texas, that probably won't happen. So moving on, we have at number 7, High West, the Prisoner's Share. This is coming in at 102 proof with an MSRP of $175. I think this is probably the most expensive bottle that High West have ever put out. So just a little bit of information here about this bottle. High West, the Prisoner's Share is bottled at 102 proof and represents a collaboration between two companies that will appear to be well suited at working together. The Prisoner Wine Company is no stranger to American whiskey. The company's founder, Dave Finey, went on to establish Savage and Cook Distillery after selling the red wine brand. And TPWC has gone on to collaborate with Bardstown Bourbon Company on 2 different Prisoner finishes bourbons. Meanwhile, High West is known for their port finish in Midwinter Nest Drum, as they are now discontinued Syrah finish Yippee-Ki-Yay. So about the Prisoner Red Wine Company, I went onto the website, and this is kind of the information I got about who they are. I'm not too much into wine, but I am familiar with the name The Prisoner. When our first wine, The Prisoner, was released 2 decades ago as a complex blend of some of California's best and most unusual grape varieties, it swiftly and permanently changed the perception of what red wine blend could be. Since then, we've grown into include a range of real bending blends with provocative label designs being recognized by fans and wine critics alike as one of the most bold and innovative wine brands in the market, leading the resurgence of California luxury red blends and earning cult wine status. But $175, I don't think that's the amount of money I would like to pay on this. And again, you know, since High West has been taken over by Constellation Brands, it does kind of feel like they're really amping up some of these prices and really making the most of the market, I guess. So if we take a look at the label here, really awesome label. Cool art design here with the guy in the shackles, hence the Prisoner's Share, right? And again, 51% alcohol or 102 proof. This is obviously a 750 milliliter bottle. If we take a look at the back here, the act of painting is about one heart telling another heart where he found salvation. A distinctive blend of aged rye whiskey and straight bourbon whiskies finished in the Prisoner Red Blend wine barrels to highlight the sophisticated notes of raspberry jam, toasted mahogany, creme brulee, black pepper, cherry cola, French oak spice, decadent, indulgent, and unforgettable. High West are really good with the tasting notes, really good at kind of painting an image of what this whiskey could taste like in your mind. For $175, I probably would just like to try it first as opposed to just buying it for that. High West double rye finishes, kind of like their red wine barrels, are pretty solid. I don't know how much better this could be for like $125 more. I guess we will just have to wait and see on that one. So we don't have any kind of honorable mentions. November isn't a great kind of release month for a lot going on. You're probably shouting at the screen thinking, wow, where's the antique collection, or where's the Pappy Van Winkle? So that was actually last month because it was supposed to be released in October. So if you haven't seen that video already, go and check that out, and even the ones before. And it talks a lot about some of the whiskies you might see coming out this month already. So as we drink through the world's whiskies, one glass at a time, cheers.